December 22. God's Message in Flesh. John 1 through 18. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me.' And from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only God who is at the Father's side, He has made Him known." John provides the grandest overview of the significance of Jesus' arrival on this earth. He begins the same way Genesis, the first book in the Bible, begins, in the beginning. Genesis focused on the receiving end, on creation. John focuses on the giving end, on God. In the beginning was the Logos, the Word. But this Greek noun has a much richer meaning than our term, word. It is a word that conveys a message, that communicates. Jesus is God's supreme message, His greatest communication. Before creation began, God was a God who wished to communicate His goodness. John seems to be suggesting that God created everything so that there would be a creation with which to communicate. At the beginning of everything, this message was with God. This message was God. By this message, all things were created, every single thing that exists. John uses other words to describe this message, who is God. He was the life that illuminates men. He was light, a light that prevails against the powers of darkness. John, not John the Apostle who wrote this book, but John the Baptist, son of Elizabeth and Jesus' relative, bore witness to this light. John was a great man of God, but he was very clear in telling everyone that he himself was not the light. John goes on to describe a very sad situation. This message, who created everything, who shines his light on every human being in the world, came into the world he had created. But that world did not recognize him. He even came to his own people, and they rejected him. But not everyone failed to recognize him. Not everyone rejected him. He gave any person who did receive him, who believed in him, the right to become a child of God. John is making a clear distinction here. When he speaks of the children of God, he is describing a supernatural transformation. Those who believe are born anew spiritually. This birth is nothing like regular physical birth, a matter of flesh and blood and human will. This birth is something God does in the person who believes. This wonderful message that grants the privilege of birth into God's family became flesh and took up residence among us. John explains that he and those with him have seen the wondrous glory of this message of God made human flesh. He was the only Son of God the Father, filled with all grace and truth. From him, John says, we have all received grace upon grace. He is the true source of everything good and true. Moses gave the law, but Jesus gave us much more. He brought us God's grace and truth. He, God in the flesh, has made the God nobody could see or know, seen and known to us.